Welcome, everyone. This is Anissa Avon, and thank you for joining us. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Leading in a Crisis Virtual Summit, Actionable Business and HR Strategies for Navigating Chaos, Crisis, and Change. And I could go on that one, but I'm excited to have you guys with us today. We have Wendy Carrick, our executive coach, VP of Training and Development for TurnKey Coaching Solutions, my company. And she's going to talk to us today on Be the Leader Your People Need, leveraging situational leadership too. And hi, Wendy. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Anissa. Thanks for having me.
And welcome again to everyone as you guys are coming on the call. We're going to begin at right now because we have so much to cover. So first, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. And our sponsors are our Whitmarsh Consulting Group. Wendy, would you change the slide deck for us? Go to the next slide. There we go. The Whitmarsh Consulting Group is sponsoring our virtual summit today. And David Whitmarsh and his team are a group of pretty talented marketing and HR experts, and they do a lot of work in the HR information technology consulting and multi-channel marketing space. And our other sponsor, which I'm grateful to announce, is Insperity. And Insperity has been gracious enough to offer all of our summit participants with a free HR financial analysis report and debrief. This is an HR budget analysis, a confidential report, and a one-on-one debrief. The goal of that is to help you gain insight into the real cost burden of being an employer. And I was especially grateful that they offered this simply because right now, we know that a lot of HR teams are being upended by all of the things that they had on the books for 2020 and beyond, and things are going to have to change. And so this is a perfect opportunity to get support by the experts with no obligation. They absolutely know that not everyone that will take advantage of this offer is a good fit for their services, and they offered it anyway. So to take advantage of that, you can see the link at the bottom is turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report, and the HR and R is capital. So Wendy, I'm super excited to have Wendy Carrick as a part of our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit. And I also want to share with you guys that at the end of our time together today, we're going to talk very briefly about the outplacement coaching packages that we've put together, as well as the retained leader packages that we've put together. And even better is the affordability. It is name your own price for coaching packages. It's high touch meets high tech, a hybrid digital and personal coaching package specifically focused on supporting our clients in need. So to begin, I want to tell you guys a little bit about me. When I decided to do this summit, I went to my team and I said, we cannot focus on the negative here. We don't know what's going to happen. We can take care of our families, and we can also do something meaningful for our clients. And that's where the idea for the virtual summit came about. We reached out to just a few of our expert trainers and said, do you want to join us? And before the day was over, we had 40 plus speakers on the books. The training summit is going to be every Wednesday and Thursday throughout the month of April, back-to-back sessions as it is today. And let's move to your topic, Wendy. I am excited that Wendy has brought forth situational leadership to apply to our pandemic situation. Wendy is absolutely a consummate organizational development consultant and expert. Our clients love Wendy. She is super talented at what she does, even to the point when a client doesn't want to hear what she has to say, she is masterful at giving it to them in such a way as to where they can hear it so that they can do right by their employees and by their goals. She has worked, her career has a unique turns and twists. She's worked for a variety of organizations from all sizes, from startup to Fortune 500 giants such as Morgan Stanley. And Wendy, thank you for bringing this to us today.
Yeah, thanks, Anissa, for having me. You guys, it's just truly an honor, and I'm so hopeful that there would be a couple of nuggets that you might take away that will be helpful to you and your employees as you move through this difficult time. So I first of all wanted to start, as Anissa mentioned, I love the situational leadership materials that Kim Blanchard has put together because it's backed on loads and years and loads of research. What we have found is that if you are managing your folks with just one style of leadership, and there's no right or wrong style of leadership, it's all styles of leadership really that are right. It's just a matter of how you use those. But when you don't, and your leaders really could be costing your company millions because they're not managing, I think we've all said to ourselves, and we all know that your boss matters, and how they lead you really matters in your well-being at work. So I think some of these skills that you learn with situational leadership really contribute to improving high turnover, to improving productivity. I mean, if you look at the lower productivity, 58% of employees say poor management is the biggest thing getting in their way of productivity. I know I have experienced that. I'm sure everyone has. Poor leadership costs a typical organization as much as 7% of their total annual sales. So that 7%, especially in this environment, I think can really, really be helpful for all of us. So there really
If you think about that, some organizations, their margins barely make it over 7%. We're talking some organizations are at 10%, 15%. You know, those are like, wow, those are great numbers. Let me invest. So the idea that poor leadership, according to the research, could cost an organization 7% of their annual sales, it's unreal.
That's their margin, right? Yeah, that's a good point, Anissa. Thank you. So just definitely sobering statistics there. So the question is, are your managers meeting the needs of your people? Are you meeting the needs of your people? It's something I think about regularly when I coach, because coaching is management, really, in helping people learn and grow. So research has shown, and years of research has shown, that different people need different levels of direction and support. I want to highlight that, direction and support, depending upon their level of competence on the task and commitment on the task. As I mentioned in the beginning, one of the key issues is that most managers just have one way of doing things. There are some that do it with two different styles, but most of us just kind of do it with one. And especially when you're in high stress, you're going to revert back to what you're most comfortable with. So that's why I chose this to talk about today, is I think it really is important to enhance the ability of our leaders to really adapt to different situations, really adjusting their behavior to meet their clients' needs.
Well, and this is something that even really good leaders during times of crisis may not have the foresight to manage differently, to lead differently, to address the needs of their employees at a time like this. So I'm not going to keep asking my questions right now, because I know you're going to get to that, but that's going to be important for us to learn today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as the slide reads, situational leaders really give their people what they need when they need it. And you're right, Anissa, right now we are in kind of an all hands mode, not really knowing what the future holds, what we're doing. So we will revert back to typically what most people call micromanagement, or we're going to revert back to being very quiet and not directing very clearly. So I think it's really, really important for us to kind of bring this to the forefront. If we can, we will accelerate development of our employees, which may not be our focus today, but it can be. We definitely can increase productivity and performance. We can also increase engagement and retention, because when people feel that they are supported as well as directed in the right way, they will be loyal until the cows come home. And in the end, we really want to be creating proactive problem solvers, and you'll see why in a minute, but wouldn't it be nice if all of our team was just they knew it, they were competent, they were excited about it, and they could help us solve all of the problems that we're facing in today's different environment. Just a minute on situational leadership. It is the most widely taught leadership model in the world. It's been used to train more than 5 million. That's a lot of 5 million managers at leading organizations. It is just a Cadillac, I think. It has been translated into 15 languages. It's been implemented into 35 countries, and it's really based on 30 years of research, millions and millions of hours of classroom training and experience, and the best thinking in the learning and development field. Ken Blanchard just happens to be my hero. I think he has created a wonderful company, a wonderful process, and they live their principles. So again, I'm really excited about this content. It has proven results that I have seen myself. So it really has 3 components. It's not complicated. It's very simple. There's leaders that utilize situational leadership are really good at goal setting and getting alignment, which is key, on what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. The next section, so we're gonna really talk about kind of this goal setting. We have a different way in SL2 that kind of highlights some different things. So we'll spend a little time on that today. The second skill of a situation leader is the ability to actually diagnose where their team member is on a particular task. We're not diagnosing competence as a whole in this exercise. We're actually looking at it per task or per assignment or per goal. And then matching really means providing the appropriate leadership style that your employees need. It's really all about managers working in partnership with their team members. It's really not something you do to people. It's actually something that you do with people. So as I mentioned, it's a proven time-tested leadership model. It is really easy to understand. I don't know how many of you have seen this before, but it's very easy. The framework is easy and repeatable. It really helps promote high quality conversations. In my mind, this is really all about communicating, taking the time to communicate effectively with clarity to your employees to help them get help them kind of achieve the goals that you've set out or that they've set out for themselves. So the first thing, as I mentioned, is goal setting. Everybody, I'm sure, has heard the SMART model, seen the SMART model in a variety of different ways. With situational leadership, we look at it really, there's 5 things, but the 2 most important things, well, I guess they're all important, but the first thing you should start with really is my goal specific, or is the task that I've been asked to do specific and clear?
One of the things about that we've been learning throughout this summit is the goal right now may be as simple as, are my employees taken care of? Mm-hmm. Have I managed the relationship with my people? Are there needs? Do they have, if we're laying off people, are their families still taking, do they have the health insurance they need? Are they, do they have the food they need? So some of what you're sharing is really about how the goal isn't necessarily, okay, how are we going to make another gazillion dollars this year? It's right now applying it to the situation at hand. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when we start off thinking about goals, which you just kind of brought to my mind, Anissa, is we think about this big lofty thing, right, that we're going to work on for the next quarter, the next year. We've written them down. We have some action plans, but this situational leadership really gets at the detailed level of day-to-day tasks. So when I think about using situational leadership and setting goals today, I'm not really looking at my large goals. I'm looking at what needs to be done today to move our business forward. And that might be, you know what, Jim, today we just need to clean this up. We need to take out the trash. We need to inventory what we have. Maybe Jim's never done that before, right? So as a leader, it's extremely important that you really are specific about what is the task I need done, And then I also want to show or model what good looks like.
Yep.
Right. Because
so
then
we're talking about intentions also. My intention is to support my employees. So my goal is to behave in a way where they feel supported, for example.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So back to the model, again, specific and clarity, I think, is of utmost importance in today's environment, because if you are in a rushed environment, you're hurried to get things through, and you don't provide clarity, people are not going to perform as they could. Let's just say that. There should always be a trackable something in there. Is there a way to gauge your progress? Are there measures that will help your employees feel success? You may miss those right now because you're so rushed to just get things done. But if you can just give a timeline or a clarity of what progress looks like, that will also motivate your employees, which really brings me to the rest of the model. M in our model is motivating instead of measurable. We've got the measure down here at trackable. Motivating is really, I think, key to accomplishing the task. So it's always good to check in with your employees to make sure they're excited or interested. They may not want to do the task, they may not want to take out the trash, but that's what needs to be done today. So they'll become interested, right? Is the goal realistic and achievable? I know all of us have probably worked on goals that are really not realistic and sometimes not achievable. Thus, it affects our motivation. And finally, is the goal important and aligned with the organizational goals? Well, as we said, it might just be keeping the doors open in this environment. So taking the trash out today is relevant. So it's important that when you're going through your task goals, not your large goals, that again, you're very specific, that your employee is motivated, it's attainable, relevant, and you can track it in some way.
You know, this is something that most of us have studied as far as SMART goals and something similar, but in applying it to this context, what I just took away from this that I think is very valuable is specific to my intentions today, holding it together today, helping our employees hold it together today. I just read quickly in between, there was a news notice on my mobile phone that said after Amazon employees walk out, that Amazon is now going to take temperature of employees before they, so it took though employees saying, we're not going to jeopardize our health. We need management to do something for management to say, oh, well, that's a good idea. We'll take temperatures. Okay, we're back at work, right? And that doesn't mean that they didn't care, but they hadn't slowed down enough to think about what is their real goal. And if the real goal is what they say it is, we want to protect our employees, then their task list would have included, how do we do that? Take temperatures at the door.
You know, and I think you bring up a really good point. This model that we're sharing actually does take some time. You got to take a breath, think about what you're providing, especially making sure your direction is clear. You know, take the temperature this way, not this way. This is what success looks like. That is going to be really, really beneficial for your employees as they move forward. Again, that clarity of what you're asking them to do. But you got to slow down because you're going to be, you know, kind of just barking out orders. We need to get this done, this done, this done. Everybody's moving so quickly. Take a breath, breathe, and think about how can I really help my team move forward by giving better clarity into what we're doing.
Very good.
All right, so there is a development cycle, and I find this fascinating because as I go back into my years and years of learning all kinds of different things, I always start at this D1 level with low confidence, and I'm always very excited. I'm sure Anissa can attest that I will do anything that anybody needs me to do. I'll be excited about it. What happens next, though, after I'm excited, is I kind of get into that mode of, oh my goodness, I am not quite sure how to do this task. My commitment goes, and I'm just kind of lost. And again, back to the clarity. If I don't have clarity, my commitment is going to wane. And, you know, it might wane even because I don't know what I don't know, even though I was excited at that development level 1. I move to D2 and I may not be quite as excited. On D3, it's really about, I really know how to do what you're asking me to do, but I have a variable commitment for one reason or the other. I'm going to venture to guess that most of our people today in a new world, if we're not doing exactly the same thing we did, 3 weeks ago, we're going to be really excited and committed to helping to do whatever it takes. And we will spend most of our time in D2, D3 if it's a new task, because either we're not going to know how to do it or we know how to do it, but we need some support from our manager. So again, it's really important to just think about where are they? Are they really committed? If you see performance decline and you're not getting what is expected, then you need to rethink, what does it really mean to them? Are they committed? Are they not committed? And why? So I think we're going to spend a lot of time, unfortunately, in this area. Through here, which is not our most profitable area, which you'll see here in a minute. So again, we always go through this, and I'll challenge everybody to kind of think about something you've learned. I'll just give a quick story. When I was young, I wanted to make bread so bad. I thought, well, I can make bread. My new husband, he's going to be so excited about me making bread. I'm excited about me making bread. So I got all my ingredients. I started putting it all together, kneading it. I had flour all over myself, put the bread in the oven, and guess what I came up with? Just bricks, nothing but bricks. Didn't rise, it just was flat bread. So, my high commitment and my excitement clearly went now to D2, where I had a little bit of confidence. I'd finally put some bread together, but it didn't work out well. So I didn't have any commitment to do it again. So I'll bet it took me another 10 years before I made bread again. My husband bought me a book, interestingly enough, that says, "No more bricks." So I thought that was kind of funny, but I then learned about wheat and gluten and how it all works together, and that more flour isn't good. Flour all over my face really isn't good. It's really all about this nice rounded piece of dough, that it has the right elasticity. And I learned a lot of really cool things. So after I read the book
need to create a meme about that.
I'm at D1 again, right? Very excited now that I've read my book. I'm more confident. Now I'm even more confident, very excited. And now finally I'm high confidence, high commitment, and I can make some darn good bread. But I definitely went through this model just on that simple task of making bread.
I believe you're probably going to get to this here shortly, but as I'm looking at this model, I'm also wondering about, even if I am highly committed, during times of high stress, my competence is going to go down if I am less confident in the certainty of my organization. If I am less confident in my manager's capacity, in our leader's capacity, in the economy's capacity. So does this model also apply, not just whether or not I'm competent physically in the fulfillment of my task technically, but also emotionally if I'm competent?
Yeah, so, and what you're talking about really, Anissa, is development level 3. So you have the competence, you've done the task before, but you're seeing things maybe in your leadership that are not clear. They're not exactly what you would have done. I think what happens too in environments like this is a lot of people tend not to communicate, and it's not because they don't want to, it's because they're too busy to provide that clarity. And so when you're not providing that clarity, or you're not communicating reality with your team, trust begins to kind of go in the dirt, and then you have this variable commitment. I'm here, I know how to do it, I'll do it, but you may not be performing at your best. So most of us will perform actually on a regular day at 30% capacity. There's always 30% room for improvement. So under high stress, that's probably a lot more than normal. And it's more important than ever that our leadership is talking to us, they're giving us clear direction, and they're visible. They're visible. Good question, thank you. All right, so here's the total model. We've talked a lot about kind of your development levels of your employees. You then, as a leader, have a natural tendency to be in one or two of these leadership styles. The first one is directing, style 1. This is where you give high direction and really low support. You're just, and I don't mean no support, I mean low support, in that you're really trying to get people to just do a task. I need you to take out the garbage, and it needs to go to the blue bin, not the green bin or the black bin. It needs to go into the blue bin. So you're giving that direction to make sure people understand and have clarity about what the task is. The second level, or the second leadership style, is where coaching comes in. You're still providing a lot of direction. Your employee may now know what they didn't know, right, when they were first excited about something. And so you have to throw in a lot more supportive behavior. You can do this. I've seen you do similar things. I've watched you do this. This is similar to this, so try this, you know, and really try to help build them up, help them think through what they're doing instead of just directing. So it's almost like you have tight reins here, you loosen the reins up and provide a lot more support here. From there, you go to the next one, which is style 3, which is high support and low direction. So this is just what we talked about a minute ago, Anissa, is that in high times of stress, we may know our job inside and out, but because things are a little bit different and we have to do things different, or our leaders aren't kind of matching what we need at the time, our emotional attachment to the task or even to the company may be in need of greater support, in greater confidence building, feedback more regularly, helping people to really understand they still have this, we're going to be okay, and let's move forward. And then style 4 is really all about delegating. Isn't it nice to have someone that you can just talk in half sentences to because they are very competent and they can just take it? It doesn't mean you just delegate and walk away, though. It really means that you value their contribution and they know you value their contribution. You give them any support they need and then you kind of just back off, but you check in to make sure they're still okay, because you can move pretty quickly, and especially in this environment, from being somebody that really manages at that S4 or your employees at that D4, so you're managing accordingly. They can move back into this if their emotional needs are not met. I hope that makes sense.
Well, it does. And really right now, if an organization's goal and HR's goal is to foster high commitment, even through this situation, then that also tells us what kind of style we need to approach employees. In my experience with situational leadership too, it's oftentimes you're evaluating each employee and where they are in order to adjust your leadership style. And I believe that that is still appropriate here, but my question to you is about for speed. Things are happening so fast, and companies are laying off 40, 80% of their employees right now, furloughing. We hope it's just furloughs, but in some situations, we know companies that won't recover. So there has to be a speed with which we are addressing the situation. How can someone use this model and simultaneously make quality decisions quickly with this model? Is that a valid question?
You know, I think it really is, because a lot of we say a couple things about this model. One, a lot of times it goes out the window when there's high stress, right? Because you have to just get things done. And I think, you know, we're probably, most of us are going to be in that environment right now for sure. The reason I think it's important to just kind of take a breath and think about it is because this will end. We all know it's going to end at some point, right? And for those of you that are able to keep your best and brightest employees, they're going to be looking to you to make sure that you're giving them what they need, even in this environment. And I would say, especially in this environment. So, for example, if you're moving so quickly and you don't have time to communicate, right? Clarity. What happens when someone doesn't have clarity and you need them to move quickly? they're not going to move quickly because they're going to be in this S2, or excuse me, D2 or D3, in that they just don't have the commitment, either because they don't know how to do the task, they're unsure of how to do the task, or they're seeing you do some things that, you know, they're just not in agreement with, or they're not feeling like you care about them. Then you really have to start to think about, okay, what is it worth me just slowing down 5 minutes, and making sure that the direction I have just given on a task is clear. And is it take 5 minutes for me to just call and check in on my employees and say, okay, I know I gave you that task. I know it was a little bit harder. What can I do to support you? That's really all it takes to kind of help move people through this on a daily basis and on a task level basis as well. So that in the end, you're not only providing that clarity, but you're actually developing your employees without knowing you're developing your employees. So when you come out on the other side of this, you'll have more of these D4 employees than maybe you did before. And this is where the profit goes. So we're going to see that in a minute. For people, if you had employees that were all D4, your profit level margins will go up. So that's always the goal, even in this crisis. Does that help, Anissa?
Yeah, very, very much so.
Okay, good.
And for folks that are on the call, if you have questions about how to apply this to your situation, or, throw Wendy some curveballs, if you have some concerns like this isn't going to work and here's why, or how do I apply this to this situation, feel free to give us some feedback and ask your questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer questions, you guys, because I believe in this model 100%. So the thing is, why match, which kind of gets to what we're talking about. Why do I match? Why do I need to match, somebody that's really enthusiastic and give them detailed direction versus somebody that's very self-reliant, they can do it themselves, and I just need to give them kind of check-in support. So what does it matter, really? Well, it really does matter, because when you think about profit and the effectiveness of your employees, when you're a beginner, most of the time you're not really making any money, right? Because you're just learning, you're enthusiastic about learning, but when revenue, you have to spend the time as leaders to give this direction and make sure people understand what they need to do in order for them to start making money, so to speak. The disillusioned learner, again, probably 25%. And this, I think, is higher, right? If you're in a stress environment, but again, they're still not, they're performing, they're doing it better than they were at D1, but they're not exactly bought in to it. So again, they're only really meeting 25% of their capacity. D3 is about 50%, so they can do it, but look at 50%. They're capable, they're competent, but their attitude or their commitment is low. And so they've got 50% more they could do. 50% more, that's a lot. And D4, we typically right now have about 15, most companies have about 15% of their employees that are in that D4 category that can just take the ball, run with it. They're making money. They're helping the company to be profitable because they can do it. They don't need somebody else to coach them. They don't need somebody else to tell them the details of the task because they know it. So they're off and running. So the economics, again, of the different development levels is quite stark. So if you look at this chart, this kind of shows you the trajectory of how employees at the different development levels impact the bottom line at the company. Like I said, D1s, they're just learning, so they're probably not contributing to a lot. D2, it's around the same, a little less, right, that they might contribute, but they're still not. It's not until you get to that development level 3 that you're starting to see your return on the investment that you've made in that employee by providing clarity, training, and support. And then finally, D4, like I said, if we had all of our employees functioning at the D4 level, or D3, D4, D3, D4, kind of back and forth, just needing some support or some gentle guidance and praise, look at how much more profitable our organizations would be. It really has been proven that this works.
This is an interesting concept. How did they do the studies related to, and maybe that's a conversation for another time, but the economics of the different development levels, in my mind, is sufficient evidence in and of itself to support managers in knowing what their real job is. It is about the development of their people into that high confident, high competence, high commitment place.
Yeah, and we definitely can talk about the research and how they got there. I don't think we have time today, but you're right.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you can take the time, right, is what it is at the front end of any task, and I want to clarify, it's a task, not a person. And you can provide clarity, you can provide the right amount of support as it's needed. Then people move here very, very quickly. This model isn't one that takes years. It's one that takes minutes if you're doing it right. So, and again, it's per task. So I might be great at one task, but not so great at another task. It's up to that leader. And I love what you said, Anissa, is that we're really talking about managing. As managers and leaders, we're talking about developing our employees. Because once we develop our employees and they're performing in this D4 level, then we can focus as leaders on the strategic and the business building and, better products, newer products, etc. Because we have people that can take care of the tasks so we can focus strategically. But if you don't develop your employees, you never get there. You're always back kind of doing this development and support.
So I have a question about that. It would seem, that all you got to do is show up and tell them what to do. You do it like this. This is how you're going to get it done. Da, 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 da. But that's not what you're talking about here. You can't move the needle on someone's development by every single time telling them how to do something. So,
and that's a good point. When we teach this class, we have an activity that's called good manager, bad manager. What's your best manager? What's your worst manager? Every single time, they're on the worst manager list, it says micromanager. And that's what you've described, giving me the detail, right? However, when you are at a D1, it doesn't matter what experience you have. If you have moved to another company, right, you have transferable skills, but you still may need some direction about how it works at your new company. If you are excited about that and you understand that, there might be a little bit of what I call micromanagement, giving direction at D1, which is a good thing. Right?
Well, and right now, everyone that is still employed may feel like this is a different company. Yeah. And the tasks I'm being asked to do are items that I don't have high confidence in and are scary, and in fact make me want to run and cry. And,
Absolutely. And that you've just described really that D2, right? Where I can kind of do it. It's different. I might need a little bit of direction, but more than that, I need support and saying it's going to be okay. I need to get this done by 12. Here's what good looks like, go. So it can be that simple. And then quickly you start moving into D3, D4, because now they're competent in doing this new task and they see that you support them. And so now they're back to their old D4 self again. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Especially, what does good look like? I'm going to take that one away. Thank you.
Yeah, what does good look like? Because sometimes we just don't know exactly, And, it's not all on the leader, right? As I said in the beginning, this is a common language to start using with your employees. I always stress that it's not about being a D1, okay, generally. It's about being a D1 on a certain task or being a D4 on a certain task. You may have two tasks in a day where one, you're a D4 on, two, you're a D1 on. If you're a D1 and you're not getting the direction you need on a specific task, it's up to the employee to say, I need you to tell me, right, that you don't know how to do this before I can help you move to D2, D3, D4. So sometimes, that micromanagement, people don't like it, but you need it. But if you don't need it, you better move on quickly because you will lose their commitment as well. And I think you're right, Anissa. You bring up a really good point, is I think most of us in this environment are kind of functioning in this D1, D2. We're uncertain. We might be excited about moving things forward and making sure we all have jobs. But you know, we're going to quickly get to D2 when we find we aren't 100% clear on what good looks like.
Very good.
All right. So we kind of talked a lot about this already. I mean, what could your company accomplish if everybody today was functioning at D4? You know, when I think about our company, Anissa, or your company, I look at everything everybody is doing. We've all jumped in and pitched in. I know I've done some things that I am definitely kind of a D2 on. I think I can do it. I have some skills, but I'm really hesitant. I've had to really coach myself to get through it. But I can do that because I know that I can get through it, right? I know that I'm at D2. If you have an employee that doesn't really understand and they're kind of floundering, I guess my advice is just watch, pay attention to where, you know, when you think somebody can do something and they're not, there's probably a missing piece that they don't have. Either they need more detail, they need more micromanagement, if you will, or they need more support. And so if you're just aware that people go through this at a task level, and make sure you're providing the clarity that people need to move forward, I think it's just going to be invaluable. So slow down a little and you'll be able to do this. You know, when people get the leadership style they need when they need it, their performance has been proven to accelerate. And I think right now, if we're all accelerating our performance and moving ahead, when we come out at the end of this and we open back up this country, we will be D4 instead of just D1 or D2. So a couple things I just want to highlight. I know we're kind of all in this virtual environment. This content is rich. You guys, we have not spent a great deal of time into the detail. I hope I've given you enough to kind of think about and take home. But these courses can be delivered virtually. So we can do 2-hour chunks of both learning the content and practicing the content. There is also a self-study virtual blend where you, I will say Ken Blanchard has some of the best online materials I have ever seen. Lovely videos, well done participant materials and activities that are built for self-study, and then doing a practice as a group virtually might be an option. I don't think we're really at the time for face-to-face or maybe even just a virtual or blended, but we can do all of this content and do it very, very well, I think, virtually. So I just, again, wanted to highlight that and let you know that it's available. In addition, let me just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions that I might be able to answer.
And please interrupt me, guys, with your own questions, because I can go all day with my questions, and I'm hopeful that they're helpful to folks who are listening. Wendy, one of the things, can you go back to the model itself?
Yes, I can.
How are we doing on our time? We've got a few minutes.
Yep.
One more, yeah, the little bit more.
A minute, I'll get
all
there.
the way up to the model. There we go. Yeah, that one. The goal is to get our team to S4, right? D4, I guess.
To D4, yeah.
D4. Right now, during times of stress, we're going to have our low performers, and if we're still employing our low performers, and then we're going to have our typical high performers. How might HR help managers learn just one aspect of this model that can help them put their attention on where it really matters, bringing their higher performers, some people are just have greater confidence and greater competence no matter what you throw at them, right? And in those situations, how might HR bring those folks into the fold of supporting the greater organization? HR is too taxed, leaders are too taxed. What is your suggestion for maybe one thing out of this that they could do or bring back to their team?
You know, it's a really good question, and my mind just kind of swims with answers because there's so many things that you can do, I think, using this model. Number one is be aware that people, even though they're typically a high performer, they may not be high performing right now. Because of one of two things. One, they have a new task that you haven't had really time to give training or instruction around, or you maybe are not. I know if you're me, one of the pieces of feedback I got when I was leading a team is, Wendy, I need more clarity. Because in my mind, I've got it up here and I think everybody can just fill in the details because I don't have them. Well, it's hard for me as a leader to kind of get back to my S1 styles where I struggle is giving enough detail, right? So if somebody's struggling with a task, it's not general performance. I want to be, again, clear on that we're not D1s, D2s, D3s, D4s all the time. It's based on the task we're doing. So for example, I may perform at D4 regularly, at least I want to hope that that's the case. But when I'm given a new task, I need a minute to get my mind around it. I need the ability to reach out and answer questions. I need a certain amount of detail, maybe not all the detail that somebody might give, but a certain amount so I can move forward. So my advice to HR is to really help your manager see that people are going to be performing differently than they have. And then it's really trying to uncover and listen to what they need. Do they need more task knowledge so they're competent, or do they need more support so they're committed? And it's really just listening to people, asking questions. What can I do to provide more clarity? You know what, Jane, I noticed that today you aren't up to your normal self. Normally, when I give you a task, here's how you perform, and it's flawless. What's going on today? And she might just say, oh my gosh, you know, this whole environment's stressing me to death. Everybody's moving so quickly. I just really can't get my arms around it. And I just feel overwhelmed, you know, and that gives you that insight of, okay, I need to support her because she's overwhelmed. What can I do for you right now? Let me back off a task. Let me give you more tasks. I mean, whatever's going to help her. It's really opening up that conversation and asking the question and being alert to when things are going in a direction that you don't want them to go with their performance based, again, on the task at hand. Does that help?
I think it's very helpful. My takeaway from that is in fact about slowing down. In a fast environment, we do have to make decisions quickly. But within a framework, if we're working the model, then we can make decisions quickly based on what you started with. What's the outcome? What's the intention that we really want the result to be? What's my intention? What's the outcome I'm looking for, related to the task, related to the interaction, and then being aware about who is it I'm speaking with, and what kind of leadership style do they need from me, and then finally, what's different about what's going on, acknowledging that even our high performers may need something different in this situation.
Yeah, and they may need D1 direction where normally you haven't had to provide that. You know, or they may need you just to leave them alone and just provide support because they've got this. Again, I think the key is communicating. Once you can share this model right here with them, open up the conversation, because again, they're responsible for their own development as well. It's just not up to the leader. It's up to the leader to provide clear guidance, clear direction. It's up to them to ask for help too when they need it. So when you first roll this out, it's a new language, right? And you start using it, it's not really, people don't understand. Once you show them, then they're going to come back to you and say, oh my gosh, I'm really at D1 on this task, or I'm at D2 on this task. I really need some more direction and I need some support. So it's that simple. It's just that simple.
Very good. Very good. So I think that's been very helpful. So Wendy, I know that you have a special offer that you want to make sure that you share with folks that I thought was very generous of you. So thank you.
Yeah, I would love to offer a few 60-minute coaching sessions to do a couple things. One, to help gauge where your strengths are as a situational leader. as I mentioned, some of us leaders that are really good at meeting our employees' needs, we have a preference into what style we are managing. So I'd love to meet with some of you to help you understand where you're at currently, and then give you some tips for how you can move forward. Especially those of you in HR, if there's anybody that wants to just have a free coaching session to where we can speak more about this model and how to just roll it out in today's environment. That doesn't mean training or anything else. It just, let me help you help your team to understand how they can manage differently in this time of stress. I'd love to do that. Just email me and let me know you're interested, and we will certainly get that scheduled right away.
Brilliant. Beautiful. So folks that are with us, give us a little bit of feedback. What is your takeaway from today? What did you learn? And what can you take and actually apply in this situation? We'd love to hear that. And Wendy, if you'll go to the next slide, I mentioned briefly earlier about the name your own price for outplacement coaching and retained leaders coaching. We have partnered with a digital coaching platform to create a hybrid solution, some personal one-on-one coaching coupled with digital to provide outplacement coaching. It's unfortunate that we're going to need some of that, but if you happen to catch Fletcher Wimbush's talk yesterday, he talked about the evidence shows that organizations that provide outplacement coaching in situations like this can reduce their cost significantly in the area of litigation. Evidently, it's something like 10% of all employees that are laid off may bring litigation. Those that end up in court can cost a company up to $250,000 per litigation situation. So ouch and wow. And I just wanted to ask him, even in a pandemic, that sounds a little crazy. But nevertheless, I know that some folks are unfortunately having to look at this. So we put together a package, and I reached out to our outplacement coaches, our career coaches, and said, are you willing? Can we throw in? Is there a way for us to offer this to our clients so that, you know, no one in America in particular believes that anything that's free has any value. So we didn't go free, but we did do the next best thing, which is you get to choose what your price is. So reach out. My email is there on the bottom, leader@turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. And let me know if that's something that we can share with you. Make sure that you catch the next conversation is all about using technology to keep your fingers on the pulse of what's going on in your organization. We are speaking next with CEO of Weave.ai. His name is Vivek Mehta, and you're going to find that to be a very interesting conversation. Wendy, I want to share with you some of the things that folks have said. D4 versus D1 and all in between, and how you don't have a one size fits all for every task. Thank you.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, and you may have to use all styles with the same person based on 4 different tasks.
Exactly. Yeah. Stacy says, understanding that even high performers may need to reframe. And let's see, I agree with Paige. I was just talking about this with a leader this morning. Leading with one style is not encouraged. So
yeah,
amen.
Good. Woohoo!
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing your time and your expertise with us. Thank you guys that joined us for sharing your time with us. Do let us know what other topics you'd like to see on our summit, and join us for many more this month if we can be supportive. Thank you, Wendy.
You bet. Thank you, Anissa. I appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.